Welcome back to Copenhagen Blue. I have a problem, and that problem is my transmission. Now, I don't think it's the transmission itself. I believe it's this little guy right here, a high and low pressure solenoid for the 62 TE transmission, which you'll find on a lot of Chrysler products. So Chrysler Town & Country, Dodge Avenger, Dodge Journey, Dodge Grand Caravan, all those that have the 6-speed transmission on the front-wheel drive vehicles. When I'm slowing down, what's happening is I'm getting a little bit of a feeling like the transmission doesn't want to disengage, and apparently it can get to the point where a car actually stalls the car out. Well, I don't want to get to that point, so we're going to throw this in and see if it can fix it, and if I can do it, you can do it. Let's get started. We have an 8mm here. I think it goes the other way. So we're going to get a 10mm there. Make sure to set all your parts aside. Great thing for that is a grip mat. I'm going to take off our air intake hose here and our air intake hose in the back. Pull that off and set it to the side. Now, be careful because it's going to pull off the intake up here, which I don't know why they have that design the way they do. It's kind of stupid in my opinion that it doesn't have like a really solid fit on the throttle body. But it's how they did it, not me. Next, we're going to disconnect our breather hose here for vacuum. And then we're going to pull, oh, we need to get this plug out of the way here. Need a tool specifically for doing trim clips. You work it under the edge, leverage, pull that up, and then pull that guy out and set it to the side. Now you have to kind of finagle the intake tube out from the plastic there, and then this whole assembly is just going to pull up. It's held on by some grommets that go down onto the large studs down there. And we'll set our air intake cleaner to the side as well. Now the little sensor that we're putting in is actually right behind here on this cover, but we do have to get some things out of the way. We have to, this actually is attached to the pan that we're going to take off here. We're going to have to take off these transmission cooler lines to get these out of the way so that we can get our pan off. We have to take off this insulator cover, disconnect this connector, and then we will probably suck our transmission fluid out from the top. You could do it by breaking the pan open and letting it all pour on the ground, or you could drop the lower pan. I'm going to elect to try and suck as much out up here as I can, and then I'll just put a catch pan down on the bottom. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend you grab one. I think they're like 50 bucks on Amazon or so, but it's a fluid extractor. This one's supposed to be for brake fluid, but you can hook a hose up to it and suck out anything you want. So it's great if you want to do any fluid changes, or you need to pull fluid out of something, if you filled it up too much. Really handy. So I'm going to put this down the fill tube for the transmission, and we're going to pull out as much fluid as we can. To get to our transmission filler plug, it's actually right here. On this car there is no dipstick, so you have this little plug that you twist 90 degrees and pull out. Set that to the side, certainly don't lose it. We're going to take our tube and we're going to slide it down into the transmission as far as we can go. Hit rock bottom, get it to make sure that it's good there, and then we're going to grab onto the lever and we're going to start pulling it out. Ooh. Yeah. So if you've decided you're going to save your fluid, go ahead and drop that cap on the ground, that nice, aluminum piece, and put it into a container. Whether you're going to save it, reuse it, whatever your plans are, make sure it's a clean container. You don't want any contaminants. I plan on recycling this used ATF and then putting in fresh fluid, and using this kind of as an opportunity for a transmission fluid change, or at least kind of a drain and fill. Just so you know, Chrysler transmissions are pretty specific. You do need ATF plus 4. You can't just throw any old transmission fluid in here. You can't use the Valvoline Max Life, which I really like. I've put that in my Volkswagen and also in my wife's Transit, and they work great. But for this car, they're pretty particular, so we're not going to mess around. Next thing we have to do, we have to get these cooler lines out of the way because we can't get that pan off with those lines in the way. We pull up on this little plastic piece here, and you can see it just lifts up, slides out of the way, which reveals a metal spring clip, a little circular with a notch cut out of it. You can see that. What we have to do is get that off, but don't lose it because it's going to want to shoot like a rocket when you take it off. So keep it somewhere safe. So we got this little clip off. You can see it's right here. Don't lose that because you have to snap it back on to hold that line in place. Now that we have those clips off, we're going to gently wiggle, pull our lines out from the top of the transmission, and since they're on a rubber line over here, we're just going to swing them up and out of the way. So take those transmission lines, you can grab a little bungee cord, just a cute little guy, just going to hook it on to something, find something to hook it onto. There we go, we can hook it onto the front radiator support, just so those are up and out of the way. Now, as a little safety, we're going to put some paper towel in those openings that we just created because we don't want anything going down there. So we have to push down. There's a tab down here below, so we push that down and we lift it up, push in on the connector a little bit, and it's going to release on you and you pull it away. Also, we need to move this connector here out of the way. So again, we can use our little trim tool, work our way down there, and we just kind of pull that, it's called the Christmas tree clip, out of there gently. And then move this one here gently as well. Now we have our harness out of the way so that we can finish. There we go. So we have our harness out of the way, and it gives us more access to our transmission pan on the upper end. I'm also going to disconnect this connector here, which will allow us to move this whole harness off to the side, giving us really good access to what we need to get to. Next thing we need to do is take some spring clips up here and get this cover off. It's coming. Slowly but surely. There we go. Okay, so we got that little guy off of there. Now the problem is, there's another one somewhere else. There's another one right here on the one corner of the pan. So let's see if we can't persuade that one out as well. I'm sure most people probably just never even bother to put these damn things back on. But, oops, there we go, we got that off. Alright, now we're down to the meat and potatoes of the whole thing.
Meat or potatoes.
We're going to plug our hole, just because we don't like contaminants getting in there. And now we're going to grab a pan, and we're going to put it underneath the transmission just to catch any fluid that might fall off. And we're going to undo all the bolts all the way around the transmission. And then you have to get a putty knife, and you have to tap it in here and break the seal because there's a really good adhesive that holds all this together. Well, it would appear that we have a 10mm on the ones that have the posts, which there are there's 2, 3 of those, which that means there was another spring clip, but it looks like it broke off or was removed at some point, or I ripped that cover off of it, one or the other. But this goes on here, then all the other bolts appear to be 8mm. Got all the bolts out of the pan. Now we're going to grab a putty knife and wedge it in between the pan and this, but you have to be careful. You don't want to nick the aluminum surface of the transmission, nor do you want to gouge the steel pan itself. But we're going to try and work our way around, maybe a little on the bottom, and then it'll break the seal and we'll be able to pull that off. We have our putty knife. Just going to come in the corner here. We have a rubber mallet. and we're going to try and kind of work our way around. We just want to get in between that pan and that case of the transmission. Oh, did you hear that hollow sound? That was that sound of, oh, hey, you made some progress. And it looks like, if you look, you can see all across the seam there, it split. So, it might have been way easier than I thought. Alright, so, oh, yep, this is going to just pull right off for us. There we go. Nice, nice. So we can grab our whole pan here, and we're just going to pull straight out over this connector. And we're going to try and kind of wiggle this up. We're down, and I'm not sure which way we're going to go yet. Gotta get this stupid bracket out of the way. There we go. That bracket causes a lot of trouble. I'll tell you what. There we go. Okay. So let's get our pan up and out of the way. For those that are wondering still, you do want to probably drain the transmission fluid, because looking at what I'm seeing down here, I don't know if you can see where the flashlight is. Let's see if I can put you down there a little bit closer. Down. You can still see quite a bit of fluid in the pan down there. I'm willing to bet if we hadn't sucked out, you know, the 2 liters that we had, it would have probably poured out of the bottom of that when we took those bolts off and broke the pan loose. So I would recommend, if you're going to do it, take advantage of it and change out your fluid. I mean, that stuff needs to be cleaned out. I've been putting in new fluid and kind of diluting it with fresh fluid and the old fluid for about a month now, and this is my 2nd time doing it. I'm going to get as much of that sucked out of there as I can, and that way I'm putting in really clean fluid when all this goes back together. But for the moment of truth, here is the sensor that we need to replace. You can see it's held on by 1 Torx bolt, and there's a very, very fragile connector down at the bottom. If you were doing, say, the valve, well, this is the valve body. If you're doing the solenoid pack, you actually have to take all of this off to do this, but we're not doing any of that today because I ohmed all this out and it's all good. It's just, I believe, this part that's bad. So we're going to unbolt that. We're going to take this connector off. Since we're replacing it, if this connector breaks, I'm not too worried about it. We'll just snap it into the new one and put our new solenoid in. So, yeah. I'm going to use a little pick tool here to try and get under and gently release the tab for the connector. And trying to push down and... Yep, okay, well, it broke. Because there's the little piece that we don't want broken. This part's okay. It's actually just part of the sensor, but we're replacing it anyway, so let's get the new one in. We're going to use a T25. I'm going to put it in there, and I'll say there shouldn't be a lot of torque on that, so that broke through pretty easily. And with a little bit of a gentle wiggle, well, that wasn't much of a wiggle, it just pulled right out. And that's our solenoid that we're going to replace. Looking at our old one, there's really not a lot that you can tell from the outside that would be wrong with it, but perhaps it's the O-rings are kind of flattened out on the ends over here. Not sure. Here's the new one. We're going to put a little bit of transmission fluid on those O-rings so they don't go in dry, and swap it out, see what happens. There's that little tab I was telling you about that we break off. If you're trying not to break that off on saving that part for whatever reason, be really careful. The plastic's brittle. We're going to take our new solenoid and we're going to gently push and insert that in. And now that we have that in, we're going to take our screw, we're going to start it by hand. Don't use any power tools doing this, especially tightening things down. Chances are you'll over torque them and you'll strip things out, and you're gonna have a whole world of trouble then. So I'm just gonna take this, just gonna snug it down until it stops, and then I'm gonna give it like a quarter turn. Doesn't take much. And then don't forget to plug it in. If the plug just slides in on the bottom, hear a click, you're good to go. Now in order to put new gasket material on, we have to clean the old gasket material off. In this case, I'm going to use paper towel, and I'm going to put on some brake clean, and we're going to wipe the surface and see if we can't get it cleaned up. And then we'll have to do the same thing to the surface of the pan, but this one we'll probably use a razor to really clean off this to make sure that this edge is nice and clean. I'm going to cheat a little bit. So my strong suit is not gasket making, so don't judge. But I did do some 90-minute gasket maker. I did a thin bead, and I went around the holes just to prevent a little bit extra leakage. Fairly thin bead, but you know, enough. It's going to squish down, and we're going to compress that on with the nuts tight until it starts to squish out a little bit, and then we're going to let it sit, and then we torque it down. We're going to give one final wipe around the edge of our transmission before we put this pan on. Make sure that our surface is clean. I want to make sure there's no fluid that'll prevent it from sealing up. Side note, by the way, I did take off that stupid bracket that was causing so many issues on the right side. We'll bolt that back on when we're done. Alright, so we're going to wiggle our pan down. Now you have to make sure that you don't hit anything with your pan, because you got to remember that you have sealant on there. So we're going to tuck our connector up and out of the way, and fingers crossed we can get all the way down there. Error in my ways. Did not get the tube down in there, and I was fighting that, so I ended up taking the gasket and kind of smoothing it around. So it's gonna have to work, because otherwise it's gonna be all jankified up. I should have put the gasket material on the other side. I should have put it on the transmission side. Son of a bitch. There we go. Okay, that was ugly and shitty, and damn it, Gumby. No sir, I don't like it. We're going to put these on till the gasket maker squeezes out a little bit, and then we are going to tighten it down to spec. Well, while we're waiting for the gasket maker to cure up, because we can't put anything in, we've tightened everything down. I've torqued all the pan bolts around, but I can't put any fluid in until 90 minutes has gone by. Now, I know a lot of people probably won't put this back, but for whatever odd reason, I want to. So we're going to kind of try and finagle this back down where it goes. There we go. There we are, got now. There. If it helps do something, I'd rather it do its job than not. We could put that connector back there. We can hook this back up. I'm going to blow that out real quick. Okay. Lock that back into place. Can hook this piece back in there, so that's out of the way. Put the clips on before you put the pipes in. It'll make your life easier, because otherwise you're going to sit there and you're going to be fighting yourself. And there they go. So now when we push the pipes in, which I put a little bit of transmission fluid down there to wet the O-rings, let's see if we can get these guys to go in like they're supposed to. And click it. Huh? I'd say that's it. Okay, now we can put these collars back on. They just snap on. Little slide deals. There we go. And that'll hold those clips in place so it holds down on the fittings. So everything is back together in the transmission as far as wiring, and all we have to do is fill, and then we'll be good to go. All right, well, we have everything buttoned up. We put everything back together as far as all the electrical connectors are back together. The lines are back in. The only thing we have to do is fill it with fluid, which I'm doing because I wanted to do a change. For you, if you had drained out the fluid, you could either put back in what you had, but I wouldn't recommend it. Take the opportunity, change out your fluid. It's a healthy thing to do. The only other downside is to doing this yourself is you're going to have to reprogram the transmission. It needs to go through a quick learn process. You might be able to pull the battery and have it do it, but I don't think that'll trigger it. You probably have to take it to the dealership to relearn that this solenoid has been replaced. The other option is you grab an app called Alpha OBD and a Bluetooth USB adapter, and that plugs into your USB, hooks up to this app on Android, and you can actually do a quick learn yourself, as well as clear check engine lights and a bunch of other cool stuff. So it's worth getting if you like to tinker with your car, but otherwise take it to the dealer, have them do a quick learn, let them know that you replaced something on your transmission, and they'll get you squared away. You should also do that anytime you change out any transmission fluid or filter. But let's go take it for a drive and see if it made a difference. All right, well, here I am out driving the Journey. It's been about a week since I did the job, and the solenoid seems to have taken care of more than I expected as far as issues go. The slowing down issue where it felt like the torque converter wasn't unlocking, yeah, that's gone. Hard shift from reverse to drive, yep, that's gone too. And just all around, it's shifting better. Now, I'd attribute a lot of that to probably doing a relearn on the transmission. I think that quick learn probably helped out some of that problem, but all in all, the car drives great. I couldn't be happier with the result. So if you're experiencing any of the symptoms, but you don't have any codes in the transmission, for what, $35, 40 some dollars in fluid, some gasket maker, and some time, so you probably figure 75 to 100 bucks. It's worth it. Give it a shot. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.